Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 24 of the Serial Chillers podcast. I am your host, Jesse, and as always, across the internet, Producer Greg. Hello, Producer Greg.
Hey there.
So, we've got 6 more episodes left before the end of season 1. Seasons aren't always going to be 30 episodes. It's just a holiday break, really, but we're calling it the end of season 1. So, we're going to do 6 more episodes. We're going to take the holidays off. We're going to come back to you in the new year, and everything is going to be beautiful.
Outstanding.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited. It's going to give me a chance to catch up because at this point right now, I love doing the show. Work is crazy. I am recording episodes and posting them the night that I record them. Record, edit, post. So it's 9:27, and sometime around 2 a.m., this episode will probably hit for everybody who wants to listen. So thank you guys for listening. I do appreciate that. But we're going to take the holidays off, not for a break, but just to catch back up, get a little bit ahead, get some research into some episodes, book some guests, and really hit the ground running in 2018. Which brings me to another sad fact. We had guests booked for this episode. Unfortunately, with the having guests is a big problem because, unfortunately, people's schedules change and things happen. So, again, we do not have a game show for you tonight. I hope that does not upset you because we have still brought some great stories for you. I actually have 2 of my own. One is a serial killer. I just went ahead and took the questions out of the game show. So, a couple quick pieces of housekeeping. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe if you're an iTunes user. I did want to remind you also of the 6 episodes, Greg. I'm not sure if you saw the calendar, but I have booked 4 with very reliable and mostly returning guests.
Outstanding.
So this is our second show in a row, and I think 3 out of 5 that have not been a game show. I know everybody loves the game show aspect. It will be back. I'm trying to ace it 6 out of 6 for the last 6, and hopefully we never have to miss it again after that. So stick with us, guys. After the holidays, things are going to really get cool. And leading up to it, I have a couple kind of cool big surprises. So I'm excited. It's going to be good. Good things rolling into holiday for the Serial Chillers podcast. So you ready for some serial killer action, Greg?
Abso-freaking-lutely.
All right. Also, I forgot. Hey, Greg.
Yes.
So today's serial killer is Carroll Edward Cole, or he may have gone by Ed Cole or Eddie Cole, depending on who you ask. Either way, bag of shit. So, Eddie Cole, I'm going to call him Carroll, just because it feels more proper and more slightly demeaning.
Yeah, but I feel like you're doing a disservice to the great men of our nation, like Carroll O'Connor.
Yeah, but that's Carroll O'Connor. This is Carroll Cole. Yeah,
right.
I wouldn't demean Carroll O'Connor, even though his characters are mostly kind of racist on TV.
And homophobes.
Yeah, that's true. It was a different time, but still not that tight. 1938, May 9th, Carroll is born in Sioux City, Iowa. He is the son of Laverne and Vesta Cole. The next year, his younger sister would be born, and they would move out to Richmond, California, where his father is drafted to serve in World War II. In 1943, he's now 5 years old, and his mom makes him go to an unfamiliar apartment while she engaged in drunken sex. Afterward, at home, she beat him, twisted his arm, and threatened him to ensure he would not reveal her transgressions. Remember, she's married at this time, and her husband is off at war. So he's 5 years old, and he's being beaten and told to keep secrets from his father, who has gone at World War. So kind of
Not just in the old war.
Yeah. Like the big one, WW2. So it's another one of these things we see. His mom's very abusive. She dresses him as a girl several times, and she doesn't dress him as a girl and then like endear him and love on him as her daughter. She dresses him as a girl and then berates him and makes fun of him. And awe is probably right. It's the best thing you could probably say. In 1945, Vesta returns home, and the beatings by Carroll's mother stops due to him entering the first grade and the father returning home from war. Early on, the name Carroll gets him some teasing to his, quote, girly name. Once he was younger, and he was starting to have like these weird blackout spells that he was noticing and kind of keeping from people because he was a kid and didn't understand. And during one of these at the age of 7, he blacked out and awoke to find he had strangled the family's puppy.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I think this is kind of where it starts, is that it wasn't made a big deal of. He wasn't punished for it. He wasn't chastised for this. It seemed like a normal thing that they do, and they moved along with the day. Like, well, I mean, you strangled the puppy. What are we going to do? You don't have a puppy anymore. So, what do you think of that?
So you're not going to do that again.
Right. And I wanted to kind of point out here, and I just recently listened to an episode, I'm a little behind, but of the Red Handed podcast, and they're talking about, because every time I hear this, I think McDonald's triad, the head injury, the fire starting, and the child or the small animal killing. And what they brought up a good point, and I'm not sure that it was their original point or if they had read it, but that the McDonald triad is less a indicator that a child is going to become a serial killer and more an indicator that a child is currently or has been abused. Because these traits that we're talking about aren't inherent traits, killing small animals, and they're things that tend to be spurred by abusive parents, which Carroll is experiencing. His mom is pretty rough to him regardless of the fact that his father's back, but before that, at a very young and formative age, what we're talking 4 to 7 here, his mom is just very belittling and berating to him.
Gotcha.
So also at the age of 7, he begins to fantasize about killing his mother and females that would cross his path. 7 years old.
Also normal and healthy.
I was totally fucking eating boogers at 7.
I was not.
Whatever, man. You liar.
I'm not. That's always bothered me.
In 1946, he is 8 years old. And after swimming at Richmond's Yacht Harbor with a group of boys, he waited until schoolmate Dwayne was alone and held him underwater until he died. Dwayne was one of the peers to tease Carroll for his name, the most rough. It was seen as an accident at the time, but Cole would admit later in an autobiography that he wrote from prison that it was, in fact, him. I know you a lot of times take exception to these stories because, they're a serial killer who's already locked up, who's done his time, who's convicted of certain murders. He's like, yeah, when I was a kid, I murdered another kid too. And it can slightly be corroborated because, this kid died in, a drowning that took place when Carroll was a kid and he was there for it. But it's kind of like one of those things that you might see on Reddit, and I am very badass, where he's like, I held a kid under the water one time because I didn't like the way he made fun of my name. Here's the link.
Yeah, it's exactly like, here's the proof that it happened. It doesn't say nobody knows who did it.
Right. So could be fat man, could be little boy. February 1953, he is now 14 years old. We've skipped ahead in time a little bit. He's murdered Dwayne. We don't really hear a lot about him. And might I say, before I go on much farther, I like your inquisitive face. What might you say?
Yeah, please.
This is my least researched episode that I've ever done, and not for lack of trying. There is not much about Carroll Cole. He was not an exceptional serial killer. His body count wasn't exceptionally high. His rate of killing wasn't exceptionally high. His method of killing wasn't exceptionally messy or methodical or well thought out. He was just a pretty average dude that did some serial killings, and there's no documentaries. There are, there's a Wikipedia page and a Murderpedia page, but it's for all intents and purposes. I normally, let's say I have 15 loose sources and I might use 5 very tight. In this one, it was tough to find 5. So
he just was pretty unremarkable, huh?
Yeah, I mean, in all facets, he's just a petty criminal his whole life. We're gonna kind of get into it starting now, but this is one weird point, and we kind of see this again with a lot of these killers. It's one way or the other. It feels like, I guess, otherwise they'd be average and wouldn't mention it. But at the age of 14, he ranks as a genius on an IQ test with a score of 152. But in school, his grades are like about a D average. So, he applies himself and takes his 152 IQ and eventually becomes a mechanical engineer. No, I'm just kidding. By high school, he was burglarizing liquor stores and drinking heavily.
I was like, oh, man, I'm anxious to see what made him take the turn that he took.
He drops out of school the middle of his junior year, so he does not graduate high school. In February,
really, that's overrated.
Yeah, in February of 1957, he's now 18 years old, of legal age to join the military, which he does, and joins the Navy. Come on and sail the seven seas. He gets in a little bit of trouble for drinking and theft of government property. It actually gets him some time in the brig, so there were no slaps on the wrist. He gets a little locked up time in the Navy.
What do you think? What does it say? What it was for? I mean, did this guy just get shitty and steal a battleship, or was
that was what I was going to say? So this doesn't even get him a discharge. He gets thrown in the brig. He's still legally in the military. What do you think it was?
I bet he got drunk and stole like a Jeep or something.
Some pistols.
I was gonna guess guns too, but I thought you said he was a petty theft. I mean, stealing guns is that's big time.
Well, we're talking 1957 though. It's still,
true.
I mean, not that they're not big time, but 1957 it was probably not like you gotta have a thumbprint. It's 4 ID cards to get through here. You'll get fucking shot if you take one step past it. He'd probably walk in like, "What's up, Chuck? I'm just gonna grab these 4 right here." And he's like, "You got clearance for that, right?" He's like, "Yeah, I fucking got clearance. Shut up, Chuck. Come on." And walked out.
Why would I be here if I didn't?
Right, come on, Chuck, do your job.
Let me do mine.
In October of 1958, October the 4th, actually, he has a San Diego arrest on suspicion of burglary and auto theft, which finally gets him discharged from the Navy. That is 18 months after he joins the Navy.
Oh, wow.
So in that time,
he made a run at it.
Yep, he's been pretty much caught drunk on the job. He stole some pistols. Finally, while he's in San Diego, he gets arrested on suspicion of burglary and auto theft. He stole a car, and it looked like he was going to burglarize a building, and he was caught in the midst.
Mm-hmm.
So
perfect. Just a winner.
Where he's only 20. He returned to the home of his parents in Richmond after he is dishonorably discharged, where his mother would just continue the abuse by rubbing his nose in every single one of his failures.
She sounds like a wonderful lady too.
Right. She at no point ever sounded like a wonderful lady, ever. From 1958 to 1960, he remains with his family and worked odd jobs around town. And during this time, he has various minor arrests for small thefts, small arsons, just a ton of little itty bitty things. But they're just, it sounds like a sitcom about a small town. He's very Bart Simpson, very Dennis the Menace.
He sounds like a jerk, just stealing stuff and setting dumpsters on fire.
Yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like. But it also sounds like he would get arrested and they'd take him home to Ma and Pa and hey, your boy was burning the dumpster again. But we're talking about a 22-year-old guy, and we're talking about Richmond, California, not like Richmond, Virginia.
Right.
It's not a small. Well, Richmond, Virginia isn't a small town. That was a bad example. These are both big towns, and it doesn't seem to be anything really sticking to him. But again, it is early. What really were burglary charges in 58? I mean, I guess it doesn't seem like there's much of a difference. I think this creates a lot of the killers, is that they just keep getting away with shit their whole fucking life. They just, nothing sticks to them. And why wouldn't they think they could get away with it? He's gotten away with literally everything. And we're very early into it. So June 1st, 1960, he approaches 2 couples in a parked car at a lover's lane and attacks them with a hammer. No death to be had this day, but there are several injuries. June 28th, 1960, he is convicted of assault with a deadly weapon and sentenced to 30 days on a county work farm. January 1961, the following year, he flags down a Richmond police car and told a patrolman of his urges to rape and strangle women. The officer suggested voluntary self-committal to a mental hospital. He then decides to go home and call the police station and essentially let them know that's a feeling he's having, and they give him similar advice. Go see someone then. Or let us know when you have raped and killed them, and we got you, bro.
Jeez, man.
On February 2nd, 19...
Hold on, that's such a police chief Wiggum move.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be dying.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to be dead, just dying. Like, the knife should be in your back. Not too deep, but deep enough that it'll stand up on its own.
On February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, 1961, he entered Napa State Hospital for 90-day observation and treatment. He admitted to a happy childhood and refused to discuss the bad aspects of his life. On March 21st, 1961, the hospital staff made a diagnosis of antisocial sociopath personality disturbance and recommended he be discharged, then apply for outside psychiatric treatment or voluntary admission to a Atascadero State Hospital due to his sadistic, abnormal sexual tendencies.
Bro, that's like...
That's a
15 minutes from where I am in my exact location.
Atascadero?
Yeah, Ash is right up the road.
Wow. So Ash is where I believe they recommend he goes there. On the 25th, 4 days later, he's released from Napa, and he decides not to go to Ash. In July of 61, while serving a 6-month sentence for auto theft, he requested psychiatric help. So he steals another car and gets arrested, and he's serving a 6-month sentence. This is July. We last heard from him in March.
Okay.
So in 4 months, he's stolen a car, been arrested and charged, and is now serving a 6-month sentence, possibly on purpose. It sounds there's not a lot of stories about this car theft, but let's look at what we're looking at here. You know, he's trying to get help, finally kind of gets a little in a hospital he goes into, doesn't maybe trust them, gets out. Couple months down the road, he doesn't really know how to approach getting help again, and thinks like, well, maybe if I just get put in jail, like they'll give me the help I need. That's what it reads like to me. I don't know if those are the facts, but that's just what I saw on this.
Yeah. So
he asks for the help on October 6, 1961. He's now 23 years old. Judge Raymond Coughlin signed the committal order, and on October 16th, 10 days later, he entered Atascadero State Hospital. Dr. Irwin Hart diagnosed him as passive-dependent person with a facade of independence and confusion concerning sexual identification. On September 12th, 1962, almost 1 year later, he is transferred to Stockton State Hospital for further testing and treatment. Dr. I.I. Weiss noticed that he seems to be afraid of the female figure and cannot have intercourse with her, but first must kill her before doing so. Weiss diagnosed Cole's condition as a schizophrenic reaction of the chronic, undifferentiated type.
What the fuck does that mean?
Well, here's the thing that I have an issue with, is that we've talked about like 3 diagnoses that he's received so far, and none of them are the same.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a doctor. These 3 things might mean very similar things, but it's very confusing to me.
Yes. Agreed.
In April of 1963, he's released with an indefinite leave. In May of 63, his mother bought him a bus ticket and headed to Dallas to stay with where he stayed with his brother, and his brother spent the next week showing him around Dallas, Texas. On July 15th, 1963, he attempts suicide with pills after a failed attempt to strangle a woman and spent 4 days in a psychiatric ward. So I think this is his 5th or 6th stop in just the psych ward. I think we were looking at 4 or 5 in jail. He's 25.
Good for him.
Right. So in November of 1963, no story leading up to this. Is my favorite part, is I couldn't even find anything. So I've got to fill in the timeline like this. After the attempted suicide and 4 days in the psych ward, that's in November of 1963, the same year, he marries Neville Whitworth, an alcoholic stripper. People called Neville Billy Whitworth, an alcoholic stripper. So Billy and Carroll, and not the way you'd think.
Question: was he living in Dallas in 1963?
He's currently in Dallas, Texas. Yes.
Okay.
Where was he on November 4th?
Yeah, I've got questions. You said November of 1963 in Dallas, Texas, and I kind of go to one place, especially today.
Back into
the
the
day
left
after JFK Day.
Right.
But yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out for him when I'm perusing through those documents tonight instead of sleeping like a normal person.
Just looking around. Greg will report to us on what was redacted from those partially released reports, right? Am I correct in that? Some of those were withheld?
Fucking everything.
So
everything's redacted.
Greg will get back to us on that. He is married now. In August of 65, nearly 2 years after their marriage, he's convinced that Billy was partaking in sexual acts with men at the motel where they lived, so he set the motel on fire.
That'll show him. Let me burn all my shit.
Yeah, so on August 19th, 1965, he is indicted for arson. In March of 1966, he is convicted and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment for that arson. On January 5th, 1967, less than a year later, he is released and began drifting. So what a life he's going to live. The life of a drifter.
Mm-hmm. He better get real good at playing the harmonica and carrying cans of beans.
In April 1967, Oklahoma City court fined him $20 for vagrancy by pimping.
Huh.
I could not find what that meant either. I looked that term up. I Googled that term 3 separate times on my phone and my...
I feel like...
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
Let us know. In May of 67, the next month, he invaded the bedroom of an 11-year-old girl in Lake Ozark, Missouri, and tried to strangle her in her sleep. He pleads guilty to a reduced charge and received a 5-year prison term for this.
So hold on. Did he just get broken up too soon, or did he quit on it? Like, what happened?
I think that she was making a lot of noise, and as his first possible strangulation, a lot of people who do manual strangulation as their method of killing don't realize how long it takes and how hard it is to actually strangle someone to death.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So
it would take a while. It'd be really tough. It'd be exhausting.
Right. At 11, I don't know how hard she fought back, but when your life is on the line, you know, she could have kicked something over, made some noise, someone comes in. I can't imagine she was an 11-year-old girl at home alone, asleep. So, you know, I imagine her parents got in and he was caught. So, gets the 5-year sentence. Less than 3 years later, he is paroled and drifted back to San Diego, then to Reno, Nevada, where he twice attempted to strangle women in bars, but both potential victims escaped. Wonderful.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Fuck this guy. Sounds like a real piece of shit.
September 19th, 1970, he surrendered to Reno police and confessed his urges to murder women once more. He was detained and charged with disorderly conduct. It's kind of hot button right now. Like, mental illness is a big thing, you know, that there
the guy tried to get some fucking help.
Exactly, is that there aren't a lot of avenues and facets. And I'm not well versed enough to have an argument or something profound here to say, but if someone is begging for the help, how do we have a system that turned their back on this guy? This guy going like, I need to rape and murder women. Help me, please. They're like, yeah, just like what? Just there's a place like down there or something. What do you want us to fucking give you the directions? Go figure it out, bro.
Yeah.
So,
you can lead a horse to water. You know.
It is 1970 at this point too. So we're out of the 50s. We're out of the 60s. It's now 1970. So he is committed to a state hospital at Sparks, Nevada. Dr. Phyllis Peebles diagnosed him with antisocial personality, with alcoholism and compulsion to strangle and rape attractive women. I'm just going to call it Strangel for the rest of the night.
Well,
Compulsionist.
that guy has the best name ever.
Dr. Felix Peebles.
Yep.
Dr. Felix Peebles.
It sounds made up. Like, what's your name? Dr. Felix Peebles.
It's a very Peter Griffin moment. He sees a picture of Felix the cat and then sees someone peeing and then a bowl. Dr. Felix P. Bulls. Yep, that's me. Yep. So Dr. Felix Peebles gives him the new diagnosis, which is similar in ways to his last diagnosis. On September 13th, 1970, we're now looking at a 32-year-old Carroll Edward Cole. Dr. Peebles recanted his diagnosis and said Cole was a highly manipulative man who is utilizing his difficulties with the law and his threats of violence in order to acquire shelter when he is out of funds. Discharged and placed on a bus for Los Angeles, where he was to switch buses and go home to San Diego. So, he has been in this guy's care for, I don't know, 2 months? And the guy realizes, oh, shit. This guy's a manipulative fuck who's actually just kind of living off the system a little bit. Because, we're talking about a lot of people truly feeling sorry for him. There's some type of mental illness here. He needs this help. But this doctor is the first one that's coming forward and saying, like, no, he doesn't need the help. He may really be sick, but he just needs a place to stay. And he knows that we'll put him up and we'll feed him and we'll get him the medication. I don't know. This guy seems to know how to work the system quite well. On May 7th, 1971, 32-year-old Carroll Edward Cole met and strangled Essie Buck, a 39-year-old white female, and left her in his trunk overnight. The next day, 2 days later, on the 9th, 1971, his 33rd birthday, Carroll discards Essie in like a forested area. 2 weeks later, on the 23rd of May, 1971, he met and strangled a woman only known as Wilma. He buried her corpse somewhere outside of San Isidro, and it remains undiscovered. 1 week later, on May 30th, 1971, he strangled a third unknown victim. He starts to get rolling here. In June of 1971, he served time for theft and drunk driving, so he goes in again. In March of 72, he is released from prison, so he does less than a year once more.
This guy just can't stay institutionalized.
Early in 72, after he gets out, so this would be sometime between March and the summer, he's driving through San Isidro. He picked up 2 unknown women, killed one with a hammer, and the other was strangled. They were both buried in the desert, never to be found. Now, I'll take a little pause here and also mention that, he was convicted for 3, possible 16 that they can kind of link him to, and he's admitted to, I believe, 30.
Jeez, man.
Yeah. So, it's kind of one of those things where we're taking his word for these 2 women, and I'm taking the ones here that are the ones that he could have possibly been connected to. So that's the ones you're going to get from me.
Gotcha.
In the summer of 72, he met and moved in with barmaid named Diana Paschal. Neither of them were monogamous to each other. In July of 73, he married Diana. In August of 74, the next summer, he moved from San Diego to Las Vegas to begin a new life after many infidelities. So, he only stayed with Diana about a year. Later in 74, he found a job transporting coins from a local airport to the nearby casinos. The temptation, however, proved to be too much for Carroll, and he stole an entire shipment of coins and fled to Wyoming, leaving Diana back in Vegas. This was the split, sorry. He had not split. He and Diana moved to Vegas together, but now he split on her. Had a shipment of coins and said, fuck this. I'm going to pay for my life with these coins.
That just seems
so silly. Such a silly thing to steal.
Seems short-sighted.
Yeah. I got this $380. I'm going to Wyoming. You're never going to find me.
Being the richest man in Wyoming.
So in August 1975, he's now 37 years old. In Wyoming, he meets Merlene Harner, but people called her TP. After a night of
Just had a thing for
partying,
nicknames.
yeah, after a night of partying, Marlene suggests sex, so he strangled her and left her on a hillside covered by an old sleeping bag.
That's the way.
Carroll tends to have this tendency, I think he's looking back at his life and his mother, who he saw as very, quote, loose. So he's kind of, anytime a woman shows that she is, maybe a sex worker, she's unfaithful, she's, he's got a reason. He's killing for a reason in his eyes. So,
yeah,
he's a little bit fuckbaggy.
Fuckbaggy.
August 9th, Marlene's body is found, and he fled the state the next day. Red flag. Early 1976, he goes to a detox center, and while there, steals a fellow patient's $1,500 check and cashed it. In June of 76, he's charged with mail theft and jumps bail, but was captured a short time later with the charge of an unlawful flight. That just means he skipped his bail.
Yeah.
February 1977, he's sentenced to 1 year in prison. In May of 1977, police recovered the body of Kathleen Blum, a 26-year-old white female, a sex worker he had strangled and dumped in a stranger's backyard. July 19th, 1977, he is jailed for car theft in Las Vegas, but he makes bail and then heads to Oklahoma to skip bail once more. The night before Thanksgiving, 1977, meets a woman at a topless bar and agreed to spend the night with her. They get to drinking, having a good time, and he wakes up to find the woman dead in his bathtub. The remnants of her feet and arm in his refrigerator. Her butt was found in a skillet on the stove, and the body was collected and dumped into the city. Into the city dump. So,
yeesh.
He claims blackout and maybe a little cannibalism on this one.
Just a touch of it. Just a little cannibalism.
Just a tiny bit. It makes me a little sick to my stomach.
Just a taste.
Just to see how it is, right? So, who knows? Again, we're looking at his accounts of this story. So, he says this happened. He collects all the pieces, takes it to the city dump. I'm piecing out of this one. I don't know, man. I don't know. He seems very Henry Lee Lucas in some of his illusions of grandeur admissions. So, for skipping the bail that we talked about before he committed this murder, he receives a 6-month sentence plus 3 years probation. In June of 1978, he is freed from jail and reunites with Diana. October of 1978, he's now 40 years old. He's arrested for being drunk and also charged with probation violation and released on a $2,000 bond. Just a few weeks later, go ahead.
Was he like out in public?
Yeah, exactly. He's drunk in public.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, they just arrested the dude for being drunk.
Yep, you can't do that. He might not actually be able to. Probation.
True that.
November 8th, 1978, he's arrested on unknown charges that were never reported to his probation officer. I wasn't going to leave this in, but I just figured I would. I couldn't find anything on this, but the timeline from Radford University seemed to find this important. They plugged this in that he had an arrest that was never reported to his probation officer. Don't exactly know what the connection is, but I wanted to leave it in. It seemed important to some motherfuckers that were studying this. I wanted to leave it in too. So, we're talking now August of 79, so 9 months later. He meets and strangles Bonnie Sue O'Neill, who was 39 years old. He did so after a night of sex, and she mentioned after the entire night of sex and enjoying themselves that she needed to call her husband. And Carroll did not like that. He did not like loose women after all. So he strangled and killed her and dumped her body into a garbage can in the back of the building.
Wow. I mean,
yeah, no words.
The punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Yeah.
But
to him, it did.
She shouldn't have been cheating on her husband.
late 70s. Could have been a swinging situation. It could have been he knows she's out making money. He's okay with it. I don't know. She shouldn't be cheating. I don't know that she was. I guess
She
is my
should
point.
definitely have cleared that with what's his face first.
Old Carroll Edward Cole.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the guy.
Retrospect. Let's not victim blame too much here, I guess.
No. I'm not victim blaming. He's definitely the monster there.
Yeah.
He's the one who, murdered her.
Yeah. So a little more than 2 weeks later, on September 19th, 1979, he strangles Diana Cole, 35-year-old. He wraps her in blankets and stuffs her into a closet. A neighbor called the police 8 days later after she spotted Carroll Cole digging a grave in his crawl space.
How can she see his crawl space?
I think she saw him going in and out, clearing dirt, taking equipment, like it was a crawl space that he was entering from the outside. Through like an opening.
Definitely
in the house.
Should have done it Shawshank style.
Yep. Gone through the wall, bro. What are you thinking?
And one pocket full of dirt at a time.
In October of 1979, he returns to Vegas and found work as a truck driver for a religious charity. November 3rd, 1979, he kills Marie Cushman, who was 50, in the Casbah Hotel and left her body in the room for the maid to find. Sloppier and sloppier and sloppier. He was like chopping them up, taking them out, burying them in deserts. Then it was like, fucking throw them in the trash can.
Make it the maid's problem.
Yeah, now he's literally just leaving them in the room. Someone will find her here.
Close enough.
Right, so he's not connected to this initially, and on December 16th, 1979, he marries a female co-worker, no name. While on their honeymoon, they were pulled over, and he was found to not have a valid driver's license. So after the name check, a warrant was pulled up for parole violations. Now, at this point, he had been connected to the murder of Marie Cushman, and they have a warrant for that. They have him up for some parole violations. He ends up in the medical center for federal prisoners. So they see that he also has psychiatric past. So that's where they start him out there. On October 4th, 2 weeks later, he is released and bused to Dallas. And that's where he will stay for quite some time. In January of 1984, his mother dies, and he is informed of her death. And he is said to have not responded really at all.
Yeah, he seems like the kind of guy who wouldn't care too terribly much about that.
Right. February 15th, 1984, 45-year-old Carroll Cole has... Nevada has formally announced their intent to extradite him and try him on capital murder charges. So everything has been connected to him. They've got evidence enough to attempt to charge him with 3 of the murders we've talked about. On March 30th, 1984, he waives his extradition. On April 9th, 1984, he is in fact sent to Las Vegas. October 16th, 1984, he appears before Judge Myron Leavitt to plead guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder. 2 months later, October 12th, 1984, now he went and he took a judge-only trial because he believed that he should be sentenced to death.
Okay.
And you are apparently more likely to get a judge-only trial if you... Right, get sentenced to death if you have a judge-only trial. Juries tend to not want to kill people, I suppose.
Right.
So he worked the system once more, I guess you could say, and found a way to get this judge-only trial. His penalty hearing convened before 3 judges, and the panel sentenced him to death as he wished. On November 6th, 1984, he was transferred from Las Vegas to Nevada State Prison. On December 6th, 1985, Carroll Edward Cole was executed by lethal injection. He was the first person in Nevada to be ever executed by lethal injection.
Oh, yep. Good.
So I have it's probably about 3 minutes long. It's a interview. It's an interview like a week before his execution. So you can kind of hear a little bit how creepy he is, a little bit of his demeanor. He's very narcissistic and sympathetic towards himself during this. So I guess,
aren't we all?
Yeah, I guess. So I guess you'll have to forgive him for that.
In an exclusive television interview, condemned killer Ed Cole talked about his life, about his punishment, and about the suffering of his victims that
Sweet
led him down this trail
1985
to his
news footy.
death.
What about the stress, Ed? Is it changing? Is it getting harder? Is it getting easier? What's it like?
Well, it's been getting harder.
Is it?
Yeah, since Friday night actually. But really, the last couple of days been real emotionally. Not mentally drained, not emotionally drained. Just feel tired and everything like that. Exhausting.
Time going by quicker, slower?
Fast.
Fast.
Mm-hmm.
Has that made you change your mind in any way?
No.
Has it once ever occurred to you to delay this?
It's always occurred, but
He's
Why
saying
not
that
fight for
his
your life?
issues have always occurred to him, but he's
I
never
just
been
don't
able to
care.
help him. He doesn't want to fight for his own life.
Are you sorry?
Yeah, I mean, he obviously tried to get help a
for the
handful of
victim,
times.
Yes.
yes.
He's sorry for the victims, he says.
Anyone in particular?
Especially the one that was the 11-year-old girl way back in 1967, and even doing that 5-year sentence, it wasn't enough. But
This is the motherfucker that did the crimes. Like, that was not enough time. I should have got way more.
it affected me, just also because I not suffered, but I thought about it and condemned myself for many years, because I can just imagine what her life might have been like.
What was the little girl's name again?
Riordan.
What about the religious aspect of it, Ed?
He takes some of the deepest pulls
told
off
you before, that's
cigarettes that
kinda
I've ever
personal.
seen in my life.
But it's there.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about this execution, are you afraid that there might be some pain involved? After all, we don't really know. This is the first time that the state has carried out this type of execution.
If I said if I wasn't concerned about that, I'd be lying. Because everybody wants to go the, easiest, most comfortable way.
Does that enter your mind, though, that you might?
It has entered my mind, yeah. They might, something might go wrong, or
This dude.
be some kind of suffering.
I don't want to suffer.
But that has not altered my decision. or anything.
Do you deserve to die?
I can't answer that question.
No, it's the ultimate question. It is the question.
For what I did, yes, I think I deserve to die.
Cole's execution is now less than 8 hours.
So that was the day before. And honestly, I know that's kind of a long, drawn-out clip, and, we didn't get a whole lot of great information. That's really all I could find. He's a ghost, it seems like. So that's really it for Carroll Edward Cole. Very little information. Glad I found it. It's just another sad story, It's just another one of these killers that just had this really, really awful, tumultuous childhood and didn't make it out the way that some might overcome and conquer. He definitely was affected by it. I have another one. I don't know if I'm going to keep this as a continuing trend, but this is another missing persons case, an active case. This one is Nikki Lynn Forrest. She's been missing since September 25th, 2010 from Troy, Ohio. She was born November 29th, 1990. She went missing at 19 years old. She is now nearly 27. She is 5'2", 160 pounds. She is a Caucasian female, brown hair, brown eyes. Her tongue and ears are pierced. She has a tattoo of a scarecrow and the words, "If only I had a brain," on her upper arm, a tattoo of a moth on her abdomen, and a tattoo of a Celtic knot with bat's wings in the center of her lower back. She does have some medical conditions. Forrest was 4.5 months pregnant at the time of her disappearance. It was also considered a high-risk pregnancy, and she needed injections twice daily to prevent miscarriage. She left her medicine behind, so she may be in need of medical attention. I understand this is 7 years old, but I wanted to read everything they had on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
The details of the event of the disappearance. She was last seen in Troy, Ohio on September 25th, 2010. She was living with her godmother at the time. They got into an argument, and Forrest packed her bags and left. The same evening, she went to see her boyfriend in Troy, 8 miles from Pequot, where she was staying with her godmother. He is possibly the father of the unborn baby. The boyfriend said that he and Forrest got into an argument about the baby's paternity, and he took her luggage and placed it outside. While they were together in his driveway, a blue car pulled up, and Forrest got into it and left. She was never seen or heard from again. Apparently, the boyfriend has been cleared. I looked into it a little bit. Nothing on this particular website that I'm pulling from that I can see has any kidnapping cases that like fit the MO of like certain killers or things like that. These are people that there is an okay to decent possibility that may still be out there. So that was kind of one thing I did notice about this. So yeah, sorry. Continuing on. A few days after her disappearance, an elderly couple found her purse on a covered bridge on Eldine Road off County Road 25A between Pequot and Troy. It contained her medication, identification, food stamp card, and other belongings. The couple took the purse to the Pequot Kroger store and left it there without giving their names. Authorities would like to talk with these witnesses. At the time of her disappearance, Forrest had no permanent address and lived with a series of relatives and friends, keeping in touch with daily text messages throughout her family. She never picked up her last paycheck from her waitressing job at Waffle House, and authorities stated there is no evidence of foul play in her disappearance, but they are concerned about her health and well-being. She had 3 previous miscarriages, and it is uncharacteristic of her to leave without warning. Forrest has relatives in Troy, Ohio, and she also has ties to Tennessee and Washington State. Her case remains unsolved. Pequot police are investigating. If you have any information concerning this case, please contact the Pequot Police Department at area code 937-778-2027. Just a quick little thing I wanted to add. I don't know if it's helping, but I know it's not hurting. So, maybe we'll have something at the end of every one if I can find, some open cases like this that, how cool would it be to help out on finding a missing person if for whatever reason the one person that knew something just happens to listen to this show. So
that would be awesome.
Yeah. Let's see if we can do some fucking good in the world, you guys. So that was episode 24. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you again, as always, Greg, for being here. Carroll Cole, just to me, another product of his environment. I don't know. There's no answer to nature versus nurture for me. I think it's both. I don't know that he wouldn't have ended up being just completely fucked anyway. But I know that he did get there. And it seems to me, and especially I saw one 4-minute interview with him. He just seemed so smug. And so,
yeah. Well, that's that high IQ thing. He feels like he's above people, and that might have contributed to why he did what he did.
Yeah, he feels like he's above people, and perhaps that sociopathy shining through too. No empathy and a genius IQ.
And that could also contribute to the reason why he was like, they asked, do you think you deserve to die? And he was like, yeah. I mean, he knows that for what he did, he needs to atone for his sins.
Logically, yeah.
But he's just crazy enough to say it out loud instead of just thinking it like, yeah, I probably should. But let's hope they don't know that.
Exactly. Well, in the end, he is now gone. In the end, he did kill people. If there's any cool stories or facts about Carroll that I missed that somebody else has, if you have more information on this guy, please, I want to know more. And there's not a ton out there. So reach out to us or me or Greg. You can do it in so many ways. Facebook is just Serial Chillers Podcast. The Instagram is at Serial Chillers Podcast. Twitter at Chillers Podcast. The email is serialchillerspodcast@gmail.com. The voicemail line, still active, still there, still fun. Give it a call. 1-805-666-2513. As always, serialchillerspodcast.com. And now, This is the first announcement on air we're making. Merch store is open. serialchillerspodcast.threadless.com. Kind of cool, dude. We got merch now.
I'm kind of psyched about that too.
Yeah, so the stuff is drop shipped, you guys, which means it is made and shipped from a third-party location. If there are any issues, reach out to me and I will help you get things taken care of. We're just trying to get some stuff out there for you guys to have. There are a few requests. So there are t-shirts, there are hoodies, there are long sleeve tees, there are accessories, several things. I'm going to be getting some new stickers soon. Those of you who are waiting on stickers, that is all I am waiting on, is getting the stickers delivered to me so I can deliver them to you. Lastly, most importantly, probably patreon.com/serialchillerspodcast. That's the one that you guys can give as little as $1 a month. I won't bore you. Anybody who listens to the show has now heard this probably more than 24 times, because there's been Patreon commercials in the middle and at the beginning of some.
That's right.
We, Greg and I, neither of us wants to beg for money, but that is essentially what this is. You guys, if you like the show, you can donate as little as $1 a month.
I will do anything for money, though.
Just ask. Ask. His looking is more suggestively than he sounds right now. Trust me. It is just that. It's, the podcast will always remain free. We will try to keep it as low and little advertising as possible. The more we can get support on these ends where we don't have to advertise or have people pay for things, the better it is and makes it easier for us. So the podcast is always going to be free. It's always going to be here. But if you like it, please help out. A couple sources for the episode today, Greg. I used the Radford University timeline as always. This was researched by Jessica Richmond, Amber Dalton, and Laura Clement. The Wikipedia page. Do you ever research anything and not use Wikipedia?
The Wikipedia.
The Wikipedia strikes again, and also the Murderpedia. So I used just one huge article from Michael Newton. The article was pulled from the book An Encyclopedia of Modern Serial Killers. Normally, I like to watch a documentary or 6 to get ready for a show. As I said before, I could not find a single one. The only thing I can even find was that final interview with Carroll Cole. The Nikki Lynn Forrest story I got from charlieproject.org. That is a website that is there to help find missing people. So that's where I'm probably going to keep pulling a lot of the stories. And all the music you guys hear on the intro and the outro are all done here by producer Greg. You guys can check out some of his music at soundcloud.com/HellaGreg. Anything you want to add to the end here, buddy, before we get out of here?
Don't be afraid to look through those JFK files, people. That shit's real.
Normally I call Greg a kook and tell him to get off the pot, but that shit is real. So I'm going to have to check those out too. We will be back next Friday with a goddamn game show. I promise you. Okay? Quote me on that one. Other than that, thank you guys for listening, and don't talk to strangers.